Phyrexia Aubrey 1 is here, and in this video I'm going to be going through 10 cards which I think will see play in the standard format when Phyrexia drops. Let's get into it. Alright guys, Phyrexia Aubrey 1 is here, and today we're going to be going through 10 cards which I think are going to be very good in the standard format. Now I do believe some of these cards might see a ton of play. We'll have to wait and see. Some of these are very, very strong, and some of these are reprints as well, so let's get straight into it. Coming in at number 10, we have Phyrexia Arena. Now, this card is a reprint. This is a very, very strong enchantment. One colorless, black, black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Now, Mono Black is a very strong deck, and so are the Phyrexia's mid-range and the Black X mid-range decks. And this is a great card to play on turn 3, whether or not you're a mid-range deck or a control deck. It's okay, also in an aggro deck as well to kind of help fuel that card advantage. This is a great enchantment, and the loss of life isn't massively relevant. Works extremely well with Shieldred. You play us on turn 3, play Shieldred on turn 4. You don't really care about the loss of life because you're going to be gaining some with Shieldred anyway. So this is a very, very good card. Wouldn't see a ton of play, might see some sideboard play, but definitely is a strong card nonetheless. Coming in at number 10. Coming at number 9, we have the Ica Moon Gauntlet. Now, this is a really interesting artifact. It is 2 colors, 1 blue. Planeswalkers you control have 0 proliferate, and they also have -12, take an extra turn after this one. And if you cast a non-creature spell, you can choose a counter on target permanent, and you can add an additional counter. This is a really, really good card, especially in some sort of like control deck or a kind of mid-range deck. This is really, really useful, especially if you have a lot of Planeswalkers in your deck. You don't have any Planeswalkers, not many. This isn't very strong, but this is really good anyway. Being able to proliferate, especially if you've got a little bit of toxic in your deck, is extremely powerful. And if you've got multiple Planeswalkers, this is very powerful. Being able to proliferate when you have more than one Planeswalker out is incredibly strong, and being able to take an extra turn if you do have a Planeswalker that does get to 12 is very, very strong indeed. And along with all the non-creature spells you will have in a control style deck, you're going to start getting counters on your Planeswalkers incredibly quickly. Now, number 8, we actually have a board sweeper, and this is actually quite interesting. This is kind of like a modern version of an old card, which used to be called Martial Coup, but this is actually pretty good. Then this is the White Sun's Twilight. So this is the white version of the Twilight cycle in this set, and I think this is the strongest one out of the entire cycle. And it is X white white sorcery. You gain X life, and then you create X number of 1/1 friction might creature tokens with toxic 1. They can't block, of course, and if X is 5 or more, you destroy all other creatures. So it's quite expensive to wipe the board. Okay, you do need 7 mana, but if you do, you gain 5 life, you wipe the board, and you also gain a ton of creature tokens. This is a really, really good board sweeper. Like I say, 7 mana is expensive, but you do get a ton of stuff with it. If you've not got that much mana, then of course making a ton of creature tokens is still pretty good with this card. Next up, we have Venerated Rot Priest. It is a 1-drop with Toxic 1, and whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, then your opponent gets a poison counter. This is very, very good in the toxic aggressive decks that we could be seeing over in Standard, and it's a great 1-drop. You know, 1 mana, 1/1 with Toxic. You're applying that pressure really early on, and if your opponent has a ton of removal, they're going to be punished for it. They're going to be taking a ton of poison counters with this card out. This is a great aggressive creature, and it's nice to see, you know, green cards come into the Standard format again, because green has been a bit weak recently, but I think this is going to be a staple in a bunch of toxic decks. Speaking of toxic decks, we have Skrell's Hive. This is a white enchantment, 1 colorless, 1 white. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, and then you create a 1/1 friction might creature token with toxic, and it can't block. It also has corrupted as well. As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with toxic have lifelink. This is a great card. You're producing a ton of creatures, and not only that, you're also going to be giving them lifelink once your opponent has 3 or more poison counters. This is an incredible card for a toxic style deck. Being able to just keep churning out creatures is incredibly strong, and on top of that, this is great against board sweeper type effects. Very, very strong 2-drop enchantment for the aggressive toxic decks. Speaking of great aggressive creatures, we have Bloated Contaminator. Now, this is a 3 mana 4/4, 2 colors, 1 green with Trample and Toxic 1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you proliferate. A 3 mana 4/4 is incredibly strong, and the fact it has Trample as well and Toxic, and it proliferates, just has a ton of stuff going for it. And I think this is going to be a very good creature moving forward. 3 mana on the play, very fast, very aggressive. Being able to proliferate as well puts a lot of pressure onto your opponent. This is a very, very good card. Could see it in a normal, you know, green aggressive deck, but also in the toxic decks as well. Kind of fits both roles, really. Next up, we have a Return of the Swords, and there's the Sword of Forge and Frontier. 3 colorless to play, 2 colors to equip. Equipped creature has +2/+2 protection from red and from green. And whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you exile top 2 cards of your library, and then you may play those cards this turn. and then you can also play an additional land. This is a good card to have in Standard. All the swords have always been strong in Standard, and I think this is going to be strong in this Standard format. Protection from red in green is relevant in itself, but not only that, the ability to allow you to get some card advantage and also ramp, especially in decks that can't ramp or in colors that can't ramp. You know, you got the equipment decks that will be coming to Standard, the red, white, aggressive Boros style decks. Any decks that don't really ramp or get card advantage, this is going to be really good. Protection from red is probably going to be more relevant than protection from green, just because it protects your creature from all different types of red removal, and protection from green as well with all these toxic decks that's going to come up is also going to be really relevant. Alright, coming into the top 3 now, we have the Friction Vindicator. 4 white for a 5/5 flyer. It's a friction horror. If damage will be dealt to it, you prevent that damage, and then when damage is prevented this way, it then deals that much damage to any other target. This is just a huge creature. 4 mana for a 5/5 flyer is already really good. Then it has this ability as well. It's going to make it really tough to try and block this creature or attack into it. This is going to be really, really tough. We've already seen mono white be a very strong deck in the Standard format, and this is just going to fit right in. This is an incredible creature. It's going to be a massive removal magnet, although you don't really want to remove it with damage. You want to remove it with just, things like lay down arms, maybe a ley line binding, go for the throat, things like that. You want to be able to just kill it rather than trying to deal damage to it. Because if you deal damage to it, you're going to be taking a ton of damage or losing some creatures, so it is quite tough, but it does fit really nicely in the mono white deck, and it has flying as well, which I do think is very relevant and very strong. Alright, just missing out on the top spot, we have Phyrexian Obliterator. Now this is the opposite of the other one. This is 4 black for a 5/5 with trample instead of flying, and whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. Now I do feel like this is better than the white version, only because sacrificing other permanents is incredibly powerful. However, it does still take the damage. Unlike the white one, which prevents the damage, this actually does still take it. So if your opponent manages to deal 5 damage to it, it still dies, but they have to sacrifice 5 permanents. This is very strong. This fits right home in the mono black deck. Now you can play this alongside Shieldred in your 4-drop. This is just an incredible card, and really tough for your opponent. Really hard to block this card as well, but I do think it's very strong indeed. Now if your opponent blocks it with a 1/1, then they have to sacrifice a permanent, which is quite relevant. Whereas if they block the other one with a 1/1, they only take 1 damage. Not the greatest. So this is still going to be a massive, kill target on its head. Really easy, similar to the white one. Go for the throat, Infernal Grasp, things like that does deal with it. Although damage effects does deal with this creature, but I wouldn't want to be dealing 5 damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, because sacrificing 5 permanents pretty much game ending. Alright, before we get into the final pick, guys, if you've made it this far into the video and you've enjoyed it, make sure to smash that like button and make sure you subscribe for more Magic content. And guys, let me know down in the comments which is your favourite card that you're looking forward to playing with in Phyrexia Orbi 1. Well, number 1, it's going to be a goodie. Let's find out. Alright, number 1, we have, of course, Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. I'm really excited for this card. The original Elesh Norn was very cool, very powerful. Didn't see a ton of standard play, but I think this one will. 5 mana, 4 colors, 1 white for a 4/7 with vigilance. Big body, big body, hard to remove. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. But if it happens for your opponents, or if a permanent enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, they don't trigger anything. That is incredibly powerful. We've seen a lot of end of the battlefield triggers getting doubled in the past. Very strong. And the fact it just negates your opponent completely is ridiculous. There are a ton of great cards in the standard format that have end of the battlefield triggers that work really well with Elesh Norn. Brutal Companion, get to draw 2 extra cards. Very strong. Brutal Cathar, put that in play. Exile 2 things. Really good. Stops opponents' Brutal Cathars, stops Corpse Appraisers, all of those sort of effects. Elesh Norn just stops it dead. 4/7 Vigilance is incredibly strong. Again, it's a removal magnet, but if this sticks around, it is very strong. You could play Shieldred turn 4, play Elesh Norn turn 5. That's pretty cool in the style of deck. Who knows? Really powerful card. As kind of the poster card, and Elesh Norn the poster Praetor for this format, I think it's going to be a format staple. So there you have it, guys. Those are my top 10 picks for the standard format for Phyrexia Orbi 1. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to building a ton of new decks and just trying them out and see if we can get mythic, with some of these really cool cards and really cool decks. So there you have it, guys. That is it from me in this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.